everyone. Hi, Allie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm hanging in there. I'm so happy that we were able to reschedule this and do this live. Thank you very, very much for joining us on the show tonight. And thank you guys who are watching live. I know that we had a break last week, and I was mad at myself about it. I still am, but we are jumping back in there, and we always get most of our views on replay, anyways. Um, but yeah, I'm happy to have you guys here. If you haven't done so already, please make sure to like and repost this live stream that is taking place on Thursday, August 7th. And I have the wonderful Allie Hopper here with me today. And Allie actually is a pretty big deal in her line of work. She works, yes, you are. Stop laughing. You work for a organization called Guard, and it is pretty much an advocacy organization that deals in the area of human trafficking. Why don't you explain to the audience what it is that you do and your role within the company?
Yeah, absolutely. So, me and my business partner, Dr. Jared Sadolski, who's actually in Thailand right now, continuing the work over there, we co founded this nonprofit called Guard Against Trafficking. And Guard is an acronym, it stands for Guiding, Understanding, Awareness, Research, and Defense Against Trafficking. And it is a multi prong approach. We start off with research that we ourselves conduct firsthand on the ground in person research. That includes in the United States, in various cities and states across the country. We have gone to the border, we have gone to Central America, Mexico, South America, and now Thailand to continue to work together to understand trafficking from the inside out, human trafficking mainly. And what I mean by that is like sex trafficking, labor trafficking,
Right.
and it includes organ trafficking. And so we conduct that research. We have spoken with survivors. We've interviewed incarcerated traffickers. We have spoken with Johns and Janes that are the buyers of
Oh,
trafficking. And what we do with that information is we compile it into education material. And so we use that education material to educate law enforcement, lawmakers. We educate community members, parents on what human trafficking looks like so that they get an understanding of what it is, what it looks like, what they can do about it, and how they can prevent it in their own families, in their own communities, and in their own countries. And then that last part is that strategic consulting perspective, which is also advocacy as well. So we'll work with businesses to educate their employees, their staff on what trafficking looks like. We'll work with lawmakers to examine legislation. We'll advocate for legislation that other organizations or individuals have put forth that really move the needle on combating human trafficking, and that's our approach.
that's super interesting. And two questions that I have tonight that I didn't think to ask last week. Um, First one, did you do you have a personal have you been touched by this issue personally in some way or some fashion? And then I came about this show on Amazon Prime called Ransom, and it's a show out of Canada, and it's a crisis management company that I'm pretty much giving free promo to the show. But these people, they work on behalf of like family members that have like been kidnapped and are in like trafficked situations. Have you have you ever experienced a like mid trafficking event where you had to like go hands on and um, be a little bit more in the moment than the preventative and the educational card that you pretty much offer at Guard? So those are my two questions.
Yeah. So in prior to the starting of the nonprofit, prior to the work, I hadn't been personally touched by someone or knowing someone that had been impacted by human trafficking. Um, but to say that, I truly believe that there are people out there where we are less than 6 degrees of separation from somebody that has been trafficked. And whether we know it, whether they know it, it goes back to that understanding of, do people understand what trafficking looks like? And then once you learn what it looks like, you kind of go back and you reassess, was that weird situation that I saw that one time, could that have been a situation where I just didn't know? I'll give you a quick example. Someone that is really supporting our organization and actually has joined our organization, he didn't know much about human trafficking at all. He started out by donating and supporting our organization financially, started learning about what we do, started learning about everything that we teach. So he goes back to his life after learning some of the stuff, goes back to his business and was talking to somebody about human trafficking and the things that he had learned. And the guy looks down and he kind of holds his head down and he was like, "Well, that's crazy that you mentioned that, because my brother just got arrested for trafficking a teenage girl." And this man that works with us was just so surprised that this person who he's been working with in his organization for years had a brother that was trafficking somebody. And so then that realization for him was like, how many times does that happen where we don't realize that the people that are closest to us are either in situations that we don't know about, carrying the burden of traumas that we have no clue, situations where we might see it as a sexual assault, but a repetitive sexual assault with an exchange of a financial, like monetary gain or good, actually means that there was trafficking involved if someone had a handler. So looking at these situations under that lens, it makes it so much different, and it makes me look back on my life in a different way, where certain scenarios when I was younger, I look back and say, I wonder, if that could have been a trafficking situation that I saw, or a trafficking situation that I could have ended up in.
Yep.
And I'll give you a perfect example quickly. Sorry, I'm kind of trailing on, but I'll give you
No,
a perfect
go.
example quickly. So when I was in high school, my family, my mom, my sister, and I, we went with another family friend and her daughter to France. And I was in high school. I was 16 years old. And at the time, we were finding this restaurant. We found this restaurant. We like to go into places that aren't touristy places. And so we went into this restaurant, and this young guy comes up to our table, and he's just taken back by apparently me. I'm a awkward 16-year-old at the time, being like, "Oh, this French guy, he's cute. He's taking attention to me." And he asked my mom and the woman we were with, he's like, "Yeah, I know this really cool dance club. You guys should come, and she should, you guys can all come." Like, making it seem like a welcoming environment, like, "Oh, it's a dance club, it's fun, it's this, it's that." So he painted it in a certain way. And I remember the other mom that was with my mom was like, "Oh, yeah, that'd be fun. Let's go dancing." And my mom put her foot down and said, "Absolutely not. We're not going with this guy. We're not going to this club. We don't speak the language. We don't know where we are. And absolutely not." So everyone, the mom that we were with was like, "Oh, that's not fun." And obviously, me as a 16-year-old, I'm
Oh,
like, "Come on,
yeah.
mom." The other mom is saying, "Let's go." So fast forward to now, you look at that situation and you say, you're in a foreign country. You
Yeah.
could end up in a club where 2 seconds, you blink, you go into a crowd, and that person is gone. And you're none the wiser that that was completely a situation that could have happened. Now, could it have been innocent? Possibly. But could it have been more nefarious? Absolutely. And so you look back at these situations where you're like, you know, that could have been a very dangerous situation.
I was in Florida in Marco Island like 2.5, 3 years ago. And I had a situation. There was a cigar bar on the beach, and I went out there. My husband was at a work conference, and so the the hotel was at like maximum capacity, and there was not a lot of other people there who weren't with the conference. And some of the other wives and family members, we would, meet in certain places. And I had a situation where this lady like had this dog that looked just like my dog. Um, and the dog was like eerily calm. Looking back on the situation, I like I know something was going on. I don't know what, cuz I was what, like 30, 34, 35. So like what good would they have with me, like as opposed to the case that we're going to be discussing today. Like I didn't offer that much value in my opinion. And I I she wanted me to walk her to her hotel where she had a condo in a penthouse. And like she had these extravagant details about like how much she pays. She comes every winter, blah blah blah. She was Asian. She had that dog. And then she just got so frustrated with me when I wouldn't walk back with her to her hotel. And it was like I walked away from that situation and I was like, that was not a normal response. That that was very weird. And what kind of drugs did she put her dog on? Like, it's so weird, so
Well,
weird.
and it's weird because you say, you know, what use would would that person have with me? So when we train people, we start off part of our training by saying, what does a trafficking victim look like to you?
Yeah,
And then we pause and then we ask, what does a trafficker look like to you? And pause, same thing. Then we ask them, what does a buyer, a John or a Jane, look like to you? And at the end of it, you know, we ask them for their answers. They give us their answers. And it's interesting the answers that you get, but really at the end of the day, what we're trying to establish is that they can all look the same. There is no stereotype of what these people look like, what victims look like. They can be men, women, children. They can be, you know, infants all the way to elderly. Same thing with traffickers. They can be men, women, children. Children, not so much of traffickers, but more are used as recruiters.
oh yeah, I see that.
And then you get the Johns and Janes. Obviously, the buyers aren't generally again children, but it can be men, it can be women, it can be old, it can be young, it can be anyone of any race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status. It can be a single person, a married couple. It just far exceeds any stereotype that you could generate in your head of what these different groups look like, and people need to understand that going in. And so when I mention like a child can be a recruiter, it's not necessarily because they want to be. It's because A, they're being forced, or B, you know, they're like, oh, I'm so tired. If I get someone else, then I can take a break for the night. And that's what happens.
Yeah,
So
it's like Survivor. I totally get it. Yeah.
and so people need to understand trafficking for what it is, understand what it looks like, and then understand the processes that go into it, the grooming process that goes into it. And it's a tough conversation to have of what grooming looks like, but it's very important because as we get into the case of what you're going to talk about, there are many situations and circumstances where there were signs that were there that were ignored, where there were grooming components that were presented And so we need to assess this with a lens of, okay, what are we looking at here? What are the potential outcomes? What can we cross out as not likely? And what can we look closer at as more likely?
Right. I liked what Valhalla said. I obviously don't like it, but
Yeah.
I think you've been in clubhouse rooms with me when I've told people that I live next to the city that Epstein created, and
Mhm.
it was Lexner and Epstein, and it's so weird being so close to here, knowing our history, and like everyone just wants to brush it under the table. And it's a city entrenched that it's a city literally built upon the backs of these young women that they trafficked, and they recruited to do all this horrible stuff with him and his friends, and it's disgusting. Lex Wessner, he is the old he was forced to quit after like one of the Epstein lists came out several years ago. He was the old
Mhm.
founder of Victoria's Secret, Abercrombie and Fitch Limited. We also have Bath and Body Works. It was all wrapped up in the same
Gosh, and those were
machine.
all of the companies that we went to when we were younger. I remember going to Bath and Body Works. I remember
Yep.
going to Abercrombie and Victoria's Secret, and just when you're a teenager, like I remember it was
Columbus,
being like,
Ohio.
yeah, I just remember being like, gosh, that would be so cool as a high schooler to work at Abercrombie. Like, but that was the appeal that they were drawing in. That was their target market.
Isn't that sick to think about now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Well, I
the kid
remember when
standing
I
there, like
yeah.
shirtless. Sorry,
Well, and
Ollie,
I
keep
and I
going.
remember no, it's okay. I remember because I did end up working at Hollister,
Uh
and
huh.
I can't remember if they're owned by the same people or not.
They're not.
Either way, I remember working there, and the managers are college students, college kids. And I remember one of our managers saying, the great thing about working here is no matter how old we get, the girls still stay the same age. And I just remember thinking, like, what an odd thing to say. What a weird thing to say. And now looking back, that I'm not even saying odd. That's creepy. That's
Yeah.
creepy that you have that going through your head, but that is the mentality. That is the target market. So when you're looking at their marketing, everything is targeted to more of a girl next door with a slight tease, as far as teasing a little bit of leg or a little bit of abdomen or a little bit of cleavage. But that's the target market.
And so let's because I know that we could both like keep riffing and going, not riffing, but going on and back and forth on this. I really wanted to bring you in to the Amy Bradley case, and I reached out to her brother today. I spoke with him. Um, he's super. He's really looking forward to hearing your take. Uh, and he knows that you recently testified in front of Congress, which you failed to mention at the beginning of this. That is how much of a big shot she is, you guys. She's very big deal. And I heard this story and I was like, oh my God, like the person to go to is one of my friends, one of my pals. I have to bring her on my show. And yeah, I forced you to watch this series. I was like, Allie, stop. Like recognize that you are a big deal, but you need to watch this. And it was surprising during our first discussion, some of the takeaways that you had. And I I want to know, kind of keeping Amy's case, Amy Bradley, if you guys are just now joining in, Keeping Amy's case in mind, what do you think were some of the red flags that could have potentially been signs of grooming?
It's tough because you can't really tell as you're looking on, especially when it's an adult and another adult.
Yeah,
My
that's a valid
experience,
point.
yeah, my experience more with grooming, it being an advocate against it, because I introduced an anti-grooming bill here in Florida, got it passed in here, Iowa, and a couple other states. So that's just kind of setting the groundwork for what I'm going to say about the sexual grooming of adults grooming minors. But adults can be groomed by other adults, and it's really hard to kind of pinpoint when an adult is being groomed by another adult. And we need to be careful when we use the term grooming because it gets so loosely used these days.
Oh.
And then when you think about grooming, you can groom your dog, you can be groomed for a position in a business or a corporation. But then when you get to the point where people wield that term against someone and use it and say, oh, this person is a groomer, unless you're actually doing the things that sexually grooming incorporates, you're watering down what that term means. Because if everyone is a groomer, then no one is a groomer, and it takes away the meaning of the term. So we have to be very careful with how we use it. But to take a step back, normally it's that manipulation of a person to start to gain trust, gain control over that person, and then you start to isolate that person. You start to use certain techniques to befriend that person in a way that isolates them from others. You start, sharing secrets or start testing their boundaries. And so it's more apparent, even though it's still not as apparent when an adult is doing it with a minor than when it's going on between two adults. It looks like someone is either
It could be
throwing on the
taken as flirtatious rather
flirtatious.
than,
Yes.
yeah. Like,
Yep.
oh my God, I just keep pulling from my own experience with that creepy lady in Marco Island, like out of all places, like the nicest hotel on the island, the Marriott. I that lady, I know she had a plan for me. And maybe I
Yeah.
wasn't her first choice then cuz she was
So
definitely like, where is everyone?
what would be interesting is that normally when you're looking at the Amy Bradley case and you look back, it might not stand out right away as far as like the grooming component. It could be the flirtation. You don't know because we weren't there for those conversations. We didn't overhear the conversations. We saw video footage of them dancing. And, obviously
Yellow.
there's
Yeah.
disputes. Yes. There's disputes over if they met up afterwards and they went up that elevator. So we weren't there for those conversations. But knowing that those conversations were had and knowing in the aftermath where now she's missing, now you want to start to unravel, okay, what were those conversations? What were you doing? What were you talking about? Where did you go? When did you go there? How long were you there? And start to dissect it. So it's not immediately apparent when it's happening, but it should be looked at under a microscope after the fact. And so you had asked some of the red flags. One of the things that kind of stood out to me was, spending.
He said stuff about going dancing on a club on the island, just like what happened to you in Paris. Like
Yeah.
that was like when you said that, I was like, holy crap.
Yep.
Keep going.
And to start to look at more of the red flags for me as far as how the case unraveled was how it was handled after she went missing. We
Amen.
know that the first 24, 48, 72 hours are the most crucial, especially when you're on a cruise ship, especially as you're about to, go
Disembark
to.
and embark. Yeah.
Yep, you're about to go to a port. So her parents did the exact right thing. her family did the exact right thing by going to, the higher ups on the ship, encouraging them to page people over the intercom while all of the people were still there, keep the doors shut, and to start to take this seriously, because even if it is a person that just got lost, those first few hours are the most critical to finding them. And so the lack of concern that the individuals from the ship showed in their interviews on the Netflix thing, to me, just was a gut punch. And I don't even know the family to sit there and say, well, these people paid, and well, they paid for an experience, and well, we are a business. And
That
I
guy
really
was a
think
douchebag. Certified
I
douchebag.
I really think she just jumped from the ship, and I'm thinking that would be the most convenient outcome for you,
Yeah.
because it would alleviate your guilt from doing nothing. It would alleviate your guilt from not having responded how you should have, when you should have. And honestly, I'm sorry, but yeah, a 7 o'clock page over the intercom might be disruptive to some of the guests. But when you relay that there's a missing person, excuse me, we're looking for this person can't be found, this is very important. I'm sure that every person can understand if their loved one went missing, especially on a cruise ship, especially in open waters, that it doesn't matter how much you paid for to be on that ship, you would expect that if your loved one went missing, that page went out. So that page didn't go out until people started disembarking the ship, when they got to that port. But the other thing that stood out to me is, fine, you don't want to be disruptive to the patrons. All right, I don't agree with that, but there's only a certain amount of exits
I'd
on that
start being disruptive. I would make sure that everyone on all those floors heard me, and you know that.
Well, yeah, and it's crazy because I remember, so last weekend we went to a theme park for my son's birthday. And there's a point to this, I promise. We're
Okay,
walking
no, I
through the
love
theme
it.
we're walking through the theme park, and all of a sudden we hear this blood-curdling scream from this mother, and she says, I can't find my son. And she's like yelling at the top of her lungs, and she's saying, I can't find my son. His name is this, he looks like this, he's got this, like she's describing him. And I remember my husband turning around and he goes, well, she's being a little loud. And I was like, no, she's doing the exact right thing she needs to be doing. She is screaming that her son is missing. She is screaming his name, his description, and she is causing attention around her so that A, people start looking around, and B, if this child went missing by a bad actor,
The bad actor's like,
yeah, they're going to freak them out.
yeah,
So the story ended fine. She ended up finding her son, but she did the exact right thing. And so, to your point, and hindsight's 2020. We don't know how we would react until we're in that same exact situation. But what that
right.
mother did by yelling out, getting attention, if she was just, crying and keeping it internalized, everyone would say, oh, why is she crying? And then keep going about her day. But she yelled her son's name. She yelled what he looked like. She yelled that he was missing, and she got the attention, and she found her son. But her parents, Amy's parents, did the right thing. They went to, the cruise ship's leadership. They asked that the doors not be open. They asked for a search of the ship to be done.
And this was also like a business affair for them. So you have to be considerate of the fact that they were, yes, this was their daughter, and that's the most important thing that like they were dealing with. But the to the contrary, like you also you want to think the best at that point, and you don't want to act like a crazy person. You know what I'm saying? Like go for, like, on a scale of 1 to 100, go for the immediate 100. When she may have just gotten off the ship. You never know. And Wendy, this is my YouTube. If you have a YouTube, feel free to drop it. I talk about what I want to talk about. Thanks, love. Okay. So, what
So
else?
to your point, so her parents did the right thing. Her brother did the right thing. The leadership on the ship did not do the right thing. They did not do it. And the thing when they were going to disembark, there are a limited amount of exits on that ship. All
Right.
they had to do was post up staff at every single
Right.
ramp, and just observe. Show them a photo of Amy, show them that, this is what she looks like. Any bags that look like they could fit a body in them, check them. That you don't have to be questioned as to why you're on a cruise
The
ship.
videographer dude even said on his
Yeah.
that podcast. Did you watch that, by the way, where he was like, uh if they would have seen what was in my room, the boxes that I had my equipment in were big enough to hide a body. Nobody looked.
Well, and it's crazy because to your point, they said that they conducted an entire, search of the entire ship. But then you
The
come to find out they actually only searched the common areas. So it's like, okay, which was it? Did they search the entire ship? Did they tell people they searched the entire ship and then kind of pull back on their statement and say, well, actually, no, we only searched the common areas? That's unacceptable. That
right.
is unacceptable to me. So to post up people at the exits to make sure that she isn't getting off the ship without, staff checking to see if she's there. But, and I don't know her and I don't know her family, but from what it sounds like she wouldn't have left the ship without at least checking in with her parents, with at
Correct.
least letting them know they were going on the island, with at least leaving a note, like they said that she likes to leave notes.
Yep.
So saying, maybe I know one of the theories was that she was going off to buy drugs. All right, let's say that she was. I don't
Let's
think
play
that
it
that's
down. Let's play it down.
yeah. So I don't think that that was the case, but let's say it was. I could still see her leaving a note saying, hey, I'm going to the
Exactly.
island. Not saying, hey, I'm going to the island to go score drugs, but hey, I'm going to the island. I'll see you guys, in a couple hours. Don't worry about me.
Yep.
But she didn't do that. She did things that seemed like it was out of character for her, or her movements seemed like they were out of character for her. So the other thing that was really odd to me was that, in a lot of the Netflix series, they talk about how she came out and how she was interested in women.
They just, I feel like they were just throwing like false flags. I hate to sound like a crazy Republican by saying false flags, but like I feel like cuz I am I feel like they were throwing out false flags by like focusing on her sexuality so much. Like I don't know, that's just me, but what do you think?
Well, I mean, I guess you can be friends with the opposite gender. Yeah. If she is into, if she came out and said she was into women and, um, then it wouldn't make sense that there was a romantic interest between her and Yellow. Maybe there was a friendship, or maybe, it was a bisexual situation. I don't know. All I
Yeah.
know is that the things that were seemingly out of character for her were not leaving the note, um, saying that she left the ship to go do XYZ, not letting her parents know, not letting her brother know. They seem to be the closest people in her life.
Super super close.
And so that was already a red flag for me. But there's not much I can say about the assessment of suicide or the assessment of falling over the ship, other than the rails did seem very high,
Yeah.
and the likelihood of her committing suicide seems very low, because in all accounts it just doesn't fit. And I know that, suicide looks different for everyone. Sometimes people don't pick up on the signs, but you might not pick up on the signs right away, but later on you kind of reassess and look back and say, you know what, there was something there that I guess I didn't see it at the time. But you reflect a lot, and then you start to say, okay, I did see that. Or, maybe that was something deeper that I just didn't pick up on at the time. But it didn't
Right.
seem like any of those factors existed there. And then you get the case that there was no body. So the police chief of that island, Curacao, said there would have been a body that washed up. That is
100%.
how the tides work there. And so because of the fact that there was no body, because of the fact that the rails were high, because of the fact that there were no signs or indicators that she was suicidal, it's a less likely chance that was the outcome. Now, that's the preferred outcome for the cruise director, obviously, because it relieves his conscience and his guilt. But to
Dude, that
me,
guy.
I mean, I can't in good faith rule out a trafficking component. I can't say that it is, but I can't say that it isn't because of how things transpired afterwards, how
Yeah.
certain sightings happened.
How women were on message boards on AOL. Like, you remember this, like message boards and like age, sex, location stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like, they were warning about yellow, about the
Oh, I
creepy
didn't
dude.
know that.
Oh,
I didn't know
yeah.
that.
They were warning about the creepy dude who worked for Royal Caribbean and was part of the band. And like how he would try to coax you to come up to the disco at 6 a.m. and watch the sunrise. Like 100% what a trafficker would do, in my honest opinion. And
Or a predator. I mean,
just a
it could
predator
be,
in general. Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't even have to escalate to a trafficker. It can just be a predator in general. That is their MO. That, I mean, he decides that he wants to make a pass, commit a sexual assault or rape, and then decide that get rid of the evidence, or it is a trafficking thing. I mean, those are very real possibilities. And so when you have this individual that isn't well known, and then they talk about, okay, what are the background checks like for these individuals working on the ship? Do they have criminal histories? Do they have mental health issues? Do they have drug or alcohol addiction? We don't know any of those factors, so we don't know.
Right. A lot of issues that you mentioned were things that were happening in the 90s but were not being discussed in the 90s. Like, it was the inconvenient truth. I like to use that metaphor all the time, but for my own reasons. Like, being gay, it's just swept under the rug. Things like this, like the fact that Royal Caribbean has a notorious record for, I love the bird. I love the bird.
She's in the other room too. I try so hard. I have a parrot for you guys listening. So last time we tried to record, she was relentless, but now, she's in the other room, and
My
I
dogs
didn't
were
realize.
barking. Her bird was chirping. It was like all forces were against us, and I was like, I think I'm having a heart attack. I gotta go.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So
sorry,
no, you
everyone.
were talking about the AOL chat boards. I didn't realize that, but I mean, that is very consistent with a MO of a predator. Now, I mean, is there overlap between that and a trafficker? Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of MOs and qualities and, traits that overlap between the two, but that doesn't necessarily mean that an individual that is predatory, that exhibits predatory behavior, is a trafficker. It just means that they're a predator. We're not sure what kind. what are they looking to do? What is their end goal here? So at the end of the day, we don't know if there was a sexual assault involved. We don't know if there was a rape involved. We don't know if she was alive, you know, or leaving the ship for drugs or a dance club or whatever they said it was, or if she didn't survive on the ship and was carried out in a suitcase. We don't know that. The only thing that we do know is that there were sightings afterwards. So
That's
outlined
literally,
on the
it's like you read my mind. That's literally what I was segueing into.
Go ahead. Sorry, it's your show.
No, you're good, Amy. Jeez Louise. I actually did that today. I was like, I'm going to be interviewing Amy Bradley. And I was like, Lacey, I had to like take a step back. The 3A letter names kind of threw me off today.
Yeah.
So Amy was seen in photos looking exceptionally distressed after her disappearance. Some claim that she tried to seek out help, and that's something that we also discussed in our previous recording that I definitely want to revisit because I think we had some really great points. But are there patterns in other trafficking cases where the victims are cited but never recovered?
So, a couple of things to break down there. So, there were, and as I'm taking notes, there were 3 different sightings. So, there were different things that came out of each sighting. And I'm a paralegal. I'm not an attorney. So, just a preface for your audience.
Do you have the taxi on there?
No.
I didn't think that you. Okay, so
No.
the
So there were
taxi.
multiple sightings, but yes, okay. That to
Yeah,
include the taxi, then there were 4. Um, and so taking those sightings bit by bit, and then we can talk about like the signs because that ties into the sightings. So, which sighting do we want to talk about first? The first one, the
I
taxi?
think no. I think we could. Each of them are so unique. Like, if you want to know, so like the taxi, the dude said the telephone is this way, and she immediately started walking the other way. Like the people that had taken her were the way that he had pointed, and I thought it was really upstanding of him to let the Bradleys know that when they were on the island, like, hey man, your sister definitely came up to my taxi and wanted to know where she could get a phone. I told her, and she started going in the other direction. But I think you and I have a lot to say about the Aruba, or not Aruba, the Barbados encounter in the bathroom.
Yeah. So, with the taxi, so looking back on that, and I didn't catch the part where I guess the guys were near the phone or in the direction of the phone, where I would have seen or understood that to be is that she's trying to familiarize herself with her surroundings. She doesn't know where she is. She doesn't know, basically the lay of the land. And so asking
Right.
for where a phone is. And at the time, obviously we're in a time where there were, I can't even remember if there were cell phones, but if there were, they were like massive or
They
no
were
one
massive.
had them. And yeah,
Yeah.
and pagers and this and that.
They definitely would not have worked on an island, by the way. Like,
Yeah. But for her to start to understand, she wasn't going to be able to get too much from the taxi driver unless she was just jumping in and saying take off. But B, trying to understand where the phone was, even if she couldn't use it in that moment, she was probably putting a mental pin in her head, saying like, okay, so I don't know where I am, but at least I know in this area, by this store, by this street, there is a phone. So starting to understand geographically where you are, what's in your vicinity, what is in your surroundings. So that was the first sighting. And then what was chronologically the next one? I can't remember if it was the scuba diver.
No, I believe it was the oh man, this is when I didn't finish that thought earlier. Brad was disappointed that he couldn't join us, but he had just finished a interview with News Nation. So he does really appreciate your time on this, and I've gotten to know Brad. Brad is a lovely person. Um I believe it was the the bathroom and then the scuba diver,
I
but
thought the
I don't know where the brothel comes into play either. Like, that's a really good question. If anyone in the chat is absolutely aware, I know my friend Lisa's watching, and she's pretty good at. She and I have been through some cases together. She's really good at the details. Um,
so
but
which
just
one do
go
you want to
ahead
start
with
with
whatever.
first? Okay. So let's start with the scuba one. So
Okay.
the fact that the guy said this girl came up to him and I believe she was distraught. Number one, he was able to identify a tattoo and remember a tattoo that she had and that Amy actually had.
Right.
And then remember that there were two people in her path. That's very consistent. And did she say anything to the guy that was the scuba diver?
No, she just had this look like she was trying to walk ahead of them. Um, I'm sure she saw a white guy and was like trying,
Help me.
yeah, like, hey, what looks
Yeah.
out of place here? Like, and that
Yep.
would have been her.
Yep.
So that's what I assume
Yeah. I couldn't remember
her
if there was
intentions were.
anything. I couldn't remember if she had said anything to him or not. But so that would have been the first thing was where I think he said that the guy looked at him really, really weird. And then after we go through these three things, I would love to go through what I would have done in each of these circumstances.
Okay.
Um,
Well,
the guy,
we're Monday morning quarterbacking, but I think especially the bathroom situation is something that we really need to hammer home.
yeah,
So, but go ahead.
yeah. So go kind of building in progression. So the guy in the bar, obviously he wasn't supposed to be there. He said he was in an area of
Right.
town. He could have gotten in trouble with the military. He could have, all of these
That's
things.
huge. He could have gotten his retirement withdrawn, like, and he was like 2 years away from retiring.
But the problem is what is the cost of your soul? What is
Yep.
that worth?
I'm sure it
Because
haunts him.
it would, or it should, anybody. That A, you're in an area you're not supposed to be. B, you're holding on to information that could have helped somebody.
Keep talking. I'm going to look at this and see which ones came first and when. But
Okay.
keep going.
Yeah. But I feel like that there's so many different ways that this could have been navigated. I think during that time, even if you couldn't make an anonymous phone call, I know during that time people definitely dropped off mail anonymously at the police station. Do something, tell someone,
You're right.
anyone, and say, you know what? Please don't say it's from me. Please say that this happened or that I think that Amy was sighted on this island, this missing girl. Please do something. Do something. But to do nothing. And then, I guess he did end up doing something later. But by that point, it's too late. It's another piece in the puzzle. And part of these trafficking rings, especially when you're on Caribbean islands, is you get boated from from island to island to island, depending on who's requesting what. And also to just keep moving girls around, keep them fresh, keep moving girls around so that they never get a grasp of their surroundings. They never know where they are, and it's harder to find them. So it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate that somebody that, thank you for your service to our country. It was a missed opportunity. This was an
100%.
opportunity for him to rise above and protect somebody that was an American citizen, or at least a girl that was, asking for help.
Yeah. That's like I said, I'm certain that it's something that haunts him. That he has to live with, and that is a life sentence of his own, not nearly as harmful as Amy's, but yeah, that's rough. The lady in the bathroom is just like what gets my blood hot.
Yeah, and I like the comment that you put up here. If you have a conscience, help her and the others. I mean, in the situation, it's not like he was one on how many people in the bar. Like, he wouldn't have been able to do much. It wouldn't have been advised for him to try and, fight his way out and be a knight in shining armor and put Amy at risk, put himself at risk, and try and fight his way out by dragging her out of the bar. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is immediately go to local authorities at least and say,
Right?
here is an anonymous note. Check out this place and then leave. Then it's on local authorities to investigate, or come back and leave an anonymous, tip. But I mean, there's hindsight's 2020. At the end of the day, though, that would weigh very heavily on my conscience. I'm sure it has for him.
Yeah.
And so that's a cross that he's going to have to bear.
Yep.
But the last one, the woman in the bathroom. So, and we can dissect this in so many different ways. I don't know how you want to start.
I mean, I'm not trying to like shame anyone on my show, but at the same time, I don't, I'm probably going to catch heat for saying something like this. I can absolutely see my husband doing something like that. And did you hear him? I could see Frank in a situation where we don't, where I think the worst, and he's like, Lacey, leave it alone. Someone else will call. And I like, trust me, girl, when I heard the saying, see something, say something, I took that to heart. And I will call the police for the dinkiest of things. Like, if I sense something's off. And I think that is very much a Gen X and a millennial and a boomer trait. But I think we're shying away from that. I think we're not seeing that as much with the younger generations, in my honest to God opinion. But I could definitely see her husband being like, well, I'm hungry. Let's go to the buffet. It's not like you can do anything, Cheryl, or whatever her name was. I always forget her name. But yeah, that's a situation where she had the girl's name. She heard the word Virginia. She thought she heard West Virginia, but she heard Virginia, which is where
It was still
Amy
a
was
U.S.
found.
state.
Yes. Clearly she was in a serious predicament. She had these guys jump up in on her in the women's bathroom. When I was in St. Thomas, I had a very uncomfortable situation in a women's bathroom as well. And I actually went as far as to ask Frank, to stand outside the door. And he's like, oh my God. And I was like, dude, you complain until you find yourself in one of these situations and you're like, God, I wish I would have walked to the bathroom with her. I digress. I don't know. I feel like she had so much information. She had a wealth of information. And God bless you. She I really don't understand what kept her from sharing that information for as long as she did. And Allie, before we move on that point, I have not done my duties in saying a few things. If you are joining us recently, hi, I'm Lacey. This is Allie. She's my girlfriend. Um, she's part of a really big anti-human trafficking advocacy organization. All of the details are listed below.
Not actual girlfriend, just friend. That's a
Okay.
girl.
She's
Just
my
teasing.
pal. She's my pal. Yeah, the man yelling, that was my husband. What else? Oh, if you could please make sure to hit the like button, give me a subscribe, follow, share this, retweet it. That would mean the world to both of us, because not only are we getting the info about Amy out there, but we are getting info about human trafficking from one of the most respected people in her field. So this was a huge get to get Allie to come on my show. Granted, she's my pal, and I immediately was like, you got to come on my show. Actually, no, I think you're the one that offered. And I was like, yeah, I would love that. But all of her information is in the show information. So if you want to learn more about GUARD, the organization that she works for, if you have a large chunk of money and you want to send it their way, that would be great too. But let's get back on topic. Thanks everyone for that little brief intermission. I need to make sure to do that again at least one more time. So there.
Yeah. So talking about the woman. So again, hindsight is 2020. When you look back at some of these situations, you're like, man, I wish she had done this, or I would have done this differently, or you wonder how things might have turned out differently if she had done something, or her husband saw her distraught and he said, hey, let's do something. So it's not just on the woman, it's on the circumstance as a whole. Like,
exactly.
I know that if I had walked out and something uncomfortable happened and my husband had seen a look on my face, he would say, what happened? What's going on? And start to take a pause, even if we're on vacation, like find out what happened and why I seem rattled. And
Right.
so there were multiple situations of points of intervention that could have happened here. But what I would have encouraged anybody in that woman's situation is the moment that happens, you go to the store owner, you let the store owner know. I don't know if there's video cameras. I don't know. I mean, I think they said it was old and whatnot, but you notify the store owner, you have the store owner call law enforcement, and you immediately, the speed in which that you start doing something, it impacts it. It has a stronger impact on what the end outcome is. So I want to take a step back, because this woman, we can think back to, back in the time, if we had a cell phone now, what would we do? Or we would have, we would be able to, we would call for help. We'd have a cell phone. We'd be able to do, something to help this person. And I think in the recording last time that we talked about a study, and I don't know if you're going to put that in here, but to reiterate for your audience, there was a study done where someone did a study that was testing society, when they put those pranks out there, and then they have a hidden camera and they see how
Yeah.
society reacts to something. But it was a what's the word? It's escaping me right now. But
It
basically, it was a test.
What
It
you
was
do, like, it was a real life scenario. They do it on 2020 all the time with John Quinones. Don't ask me how I remembered that.
yeah, so it was like a psychological study, behavioral study or whatever, where they had this guy walking down the street, and the guy knew what he was supposed to do. The kid knew what he was supposed to do. And what was going to transpire was this guy was going to walk up to this boy, pick him up from behind, and start to carry the boy. Like the boy was going to kick and thrash and fight. And it was to test to see what society, like people walking down the street, would do. How would they react? What would they do? And I'm telling you guys, this literally happened within the past year. Everyone has a cell phone now. That's not an excuse. Everyone has the ability to call 911 or take a photo or take a video or something. Take a photo, take a video, and then call 911 or whatever. They did this scenario multiple times, and I would say they did it like 4 or 5 times. There was only one person that did something. One. Out of the scenarios that played out, where people were walking down the street and they saw this kid be picked up from behind, kicking and screaming, only one person did something. So that tells you that in our human nature, we hesitate. We second guess ourselves. We try to go against our gut feeling and say, maybe it's not what I think it is.
Not me. I'm a tattletale.
We try and explain it away and say, well, what am I supposed to do? Or maybe I'm misinterpreting it. And you start to second guess yourself. Report, call, do something. If it's nothing, then it's nothing. Then you were being a good Samaritan. You were acting in good faith to ensure that nothing happened to that child. Then it's okay. But if you do nothing, then that is when this evil is allowed to continue to occur. So again, the scuba guy, the guy I don't think he knew, and there wasn't as much of a situation where she appeared distraught. It just seemed odd. She was more of a sighting for the scuba guy than it was more of a negative interaction.
He
But
spent
the other
all
two
these years, Allie, like, making up for it. Like, I'm not trying to throw shade at the other people, but he's like found a way to make what he does for a living impact this case in a positive light. But continue.
Yeah. But the other two situations, they could have done something. They could have said something. They should have done something. And they ended up saying something later. But time is of the essence in these situations. And, unfortunately, there's much criticism over how the FBI handled it without looking at their files and who they interviewed and for how long and what questions. Like, I wouldn't be able to give an accurate assessment of that or a fair assessment of that, because I'm one that looks at everything from a 360-degree view, and I can't immediately jump to, well, they didn't do their job. I don't know. I'd have to look at their line of questioning and then start poking holes and saying, well, you didn't really ask this question, or you didn't really do this thing. But without looking at the case files in depth, it would be a lot harder for me, from my perspective, to be able to make that assertion. But again, going back to the signs, we saw someone where 2 men were in a female bathroom. We saw someone that looked distressed. We saw someone that appeared aggressive or assertive, almost like a caged animal, like they wanted to get out.
Is that normal, by the way?
Everyone reacts to trauma and threats differently.
Okay.
It's just more of unnatural behavior. What appears unnatural? And as you notice, she reacted differently in each circumstance.
Yeah.
She wasn't as, forceful with the guy in the bar as she was with the woman in the restroom. But
Right.
again, this was over a progression of years. Who knows what trauma she incurred over that time, how much faith and hope she lost during that time. I mean,
Oh
we know that
God.
our moods fluctuate day to day, and that's just living our normal life. That's not being in a horrific circumstance, whether it's a kidnapping, an abduction, a sex trafficking thing. It's just, we need to know the signs of when something doesn't feel right. And if something doesn't feel right, if you see something, say something. That's it. That is not your job to investigate. It is not your job to determine whether something is right or wrong. You leave that up to law enforcement. You see something, you say something. That is your role as a citizen, as a human being, as a community member. See something, say something. Love it. Yep, that
I'm
is.
literally gonna walk around with a whistle from now on. I'm gonna be that person in society with a whistle, like, excuse me, something is wrong. Um, that's those are really great perspectives. Thank you, Allie. And we're like I said, we're not trying to dog on this lady too much, but just
No, it's more of a take it as a
God.
lesson learned. Take it as a lesson learned. And then the other thing is as we know that the scuba diver, used his resources and his knowledge and understanding to help the family. As the internet started to develop further, as these chat rooms started to develop further, pictures started, coming up, emails were being used more and more. The internet has changed between then and now. So you said finding people now, it people would think it's easier because it's the internet, but it's so much, it's not easier, it's just complicated. It's
Yeah,
different
I believe that.
because then you have AI, then you have filters, then you have Photoshop where you can easily change a feature on someone's face and be none the wiser. You can literally superimpose someone's face on someone else's body, or you can post an ad of someone and then, present another girl or guy for what they ordered. And they do that all the time. If you order what looks to be a 5'1" Hispanic girl, describing myself, just 5'1" Hispanic girl, because I don't want to describe someone else. And then you see this girl, and then what you get is a 5'1" Hispanic girl, but it doesn't look like the same person. They'd say, oh, well, she was busy, she got another appointment, but this is the type of person you want. So
Un
we gave you
bonita. Yeah.
we gave you, someone that still fit the scope of what you wanted. So the internet makes it a lot more complicated. AI makes it complicated. Things that used to happen in the dark web are happening right in front of us. We
Oh
talk about it all
yeah.
the time in our training, as far as grooming. It happens on Roblox. It happens on Discord. It happens in social media apps all the time. Snapchat is one of the worst.
Oh, I
Um,
bet. I hate Snapchat.
and it's not just the grooming that happens there. The sale of people happen on those sites. And so people need to understand that, the internet, it should be a helpful tool. Yeah, we're using the internet to the best of our ability, but so are the bad actors. So it's not that it's easier to find these people now. The whole lay of the land has changed.
Right? It's easier to buy drugs. It's easier to buy people. I
Yep.
mean, like,
Yep.
I can't tell you how many like Dr. Phil episodes I've seen about this. I think that's a good place for us to, or for me to segue into further explanation on another area, which is the cruise line. They definitely, as well as investigators, they leaned super heavy into the theory of suicide. So, from a trafficking prevention standpoint, perspective, professional opinion, how dangerous is it when the authorities jump to a conclusion like that without fully investigating things like trafficking as a possibility.
From what I gathered, it didn't seem like the authorities jumped to that conclusion. It seemed like the leadership on the cruise ship jumped to that conclusion, but it didn't seem like, to me at least, that the FBI jumped to that conclusion. Was it one of the conclusions that they were trying to vet out? Yes. They were investigating, these sightings, but trafficking is not as understood. It wasn't as understood then as it is
Oh,
now.
yeah.
And and I say that to say we have
People don't
trained
get it now.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. We have trained law enforcement agencies. We have trained law enforcement on what trafficking looks like now, and they're still learning new things. And I'm happy. It's not to shame anyone. I'm happy that they're wanting to learn. But if we think that we are more educated on trafficking now, that's a whole nother conversation. But back then, that wasn't talked about. Sexual assault wasn't talked about as much, that we had the Me Too movement and stuff like that. But we have had these moments in history where all of a sudden now people are starting to talk about certain things at a certain point in time. So I don't know if they were investigating human trafficking. I think they were investigating human trafficking at that time, but because of the lack of knowledge around what it looks like, how prevalent it was, then maybe there might not have been as much of a lean towards that as a possibility, because there just wasn't an understanding really on what it is and how often it happens.
Do you think that eventually we will get to the place where like agencies, you can tell when a particular agency has crisis intervention training, it'll say CIT on their shirts, on their like their personnel information. Do you think that eventually like trafficking will fall under the area of crisis intervention training, or even have its own like designation that troopers and local law enforcement like proudly wear, that they are trained and knowledgeable in?
I hope so. I know, because so my husband served in the military, but he also went through the academy as a sworn officer.
Right.
They go through so much training. I mean, not only do they have to train on statutes, they have to train on drugs, they have to train on firearms, they have to train on self-defense, they have to train on, first aid, CPR. They have so much training. And I know that, human trafficking training is so important too, but it seems like everything is so important. And these guys and these women in uniform,
They're exhausted.
There's not enough of them. First of all, they're not paid nearly enough. Second of all, they are underappreciated,
Amen.
underpaid. And I mean, we just want to, and I know this wasn't what you meant, but like society just wants to say, oh yeah, they need more training. They need more training. Okay, but we don't want to, up budgets to give them a salary increase or
Exactly.
incentive to say the more training you do, you can increase your salary. But the training that they go through is so much that like that would weigh down anybody. And then all of a sudden, now you have to not only learn about it, but you have to put this into practice. You have to worry about when you're searching someone. Are they on drugs? Do they have needles in their pocket? Do they have a firearm? Do they have a hostage? And all of these things are going through your head. And it's just so much. So I respect our men and women in uniform.
Always.
I love our law enforcement. I know that they need more training in this. They need more support though. And where I would say that we can help law enforcement is we ourselves need to take training. What does it look like? how can we prevent it in our own homes, in our own communities? How can we create an awareness around it in a bubble so that we can help law enforcement partner with them, not to, kick down doors and conduct rescues, but to be that first line of defense for education, awareness, and prevention.
Yeah.
And then step in and help with aftercare, help with volunteering with aftercare facilities, and being able to rehabilitate some of these people, because it's going to take a long time, if ever, for someone to overcome what they have had to survive through.
Yeah. Because you can only imagine, and some of the stats out there about what happens and the average day, it's uncomfortable and no one wants to talk about it. And we're in a situation here where we are praying above all else that Amy is okay. A big reason that I genuinely believe that she is because of the logins from the IP addresses in the Caribbean. Every time it's her birthday, every holiday, and they seem to just sit there for 45 minutes. I also know that people that have been trafficked, it's so easy for society to say, like, yeah, if she's alive, why hasn't she called home? Oh my God. Sit down and let me give you all the reasons why. Like, they could be telling her that they're going to kill her family. If she has children, they could be threatening her children. Um, they have Munchausen's, or not Munchausen's by proxy, but what's it called?
Stockholm syndrome.
Stockholm. Like,
Yep.
I just, do you think that could be a plausible reason as to why we haven't heard from her if she's still with us? And by the way, if she isn't, we're working to find justice for Amy no matter what. Like, that's the game plan here. And it's not just going to be these 2 episodes. We're going to keep up with it. We're going to have to fit in other content, but I just wanted to make sure that you guys know that this is important to me. I've been able to communicate with the family directly, and so it's meaningful. But sorry, Allie. You're muted, babe.
Sorry. Thank
You're
you.
okay.
So
We're going off the hinges at this point.
No, that's okay. So a couple of things. Your first question was, why hasn't she reached out? I mean,
that's what a lot of people ask. I think I explained what I mean,
there's
could be the
there's
case,
a lot of reasons. There's a lot of
Yeah.
reasons. The human mind, the way that it reacts to trauma, especially extended trauma over a long period of time, like, there's just no simple way to explain why someone would do something or why someone wouldn't do something.
Right.
I mean, and anyone that can simplify it down, I believe, I would find it very hard to believe that you could simplify down the human mind and how trauma works and how trauma responses work. And the people that have been in the human trafficking life for a very long time, they resort to survival mechanisms. They give up parts of themselves, parts of their souls, parts of just to survive. So
like you said, like, trying to hire another girl just so you can have a few hours off. It's something awful that you would never think that you would do, but you are in a survival instinct and pulling at all strings at that point. Is that right?
I mean that, yeah. So what, there's a couple of things here. I can't even begin to understand or know what Amy has gone through. Let's say, given the circumstance, if she is still alive and she hasn't reached out, you know, there's a lot of reasons why she could think that her family's at risk, herself is at risk. If she has kids now, her kids are at risk. Um, B, maybe she thinks that her family is better off without her, that she's so broken, she's unrecognizable, that the person that they once knew is no longer that person anymore. So there's so many different scenarios that can play out as to why she hasn't reached out, if that's her logging on, why she hasn't reached out. But again, it's not for us to say why someone has reached out or why they haven't reached out. The other part to your question, I forget now. So you asked, one of them was why she didn't reach out. And now I
Uh,
forget.
why? I was saying that's what a lot of people say, which I think is very ignorant. But I get it. Not everyone. People don't understand human trafficking, so like that's
Oh,
what we're here for. You know.
yeah. And so the other thing that I was going to say was, so her story is coming alive again. There's a
Thank
reason
God.
for that. I truly believe there's a reason for that. And my prayers, my heart and soul go to her family for staying strong. That is the reason why her story has just remained in the memories of people. It's been ingrained in the memories of people, is because her family has kept her alive. Now, justice for Amy. What does that look like? I heard that they tried to sue the Royal
The
Caribbean and that it was dismissed.
I
Not sure
can I
why.
cannot believe that they didn't win that civil suit after
Well,
knowing the suits that go on civil court. Like what?
yeah, we'd have to see why, why it was dismissed, on what grounds it was dismissed. But justice for Amy is A, that they're keeping her name alive, they're keeping her memory alive. But B, what I would really like to see is that there were so many failures and gaps in the law along the way that should have been put in place to help Amy. And there was another woman on that Netflix series that was talking about how the liability of the cruise ship, how it's like a floating city and it's very hard to maintain liability. What I would like to see is some of these families come together arm in arm with Amy's family and say, no, enough is enough. We are going to demand legislation for these cruise ships, that if they are a US cruise ship, they are to operate according to these standards. And if they aren't a US cruise ship, they need to abide by these standards or be held liable in case of XYZ. So
Yep.
even if it isn't a cruise ship where the company operates inside of the US, but it's a foreign cruise ship, they need to sign something that if they have American citizens on board, that at least the American citizens, they are responsible, liable, whatever, and have some sort of safeguard put in place, because it just sounds like there's such major gaps in the liabilities surrounding who's responsible when things go wrong on a cruise ship. So
Uh, yeah, everyone puts their hands
that's
up.
what I would love to see, is that these families come together, like that woman on the Netflix series. I forget her name, but she said something happened to her daughter on
Yeah,
the
God
cruise
bless
ship.
that woman.
Yeah. And so seeing some of these families, these groups come together and say, look, there's this story from this cruise ship, this story, this story, this story, this story, and come together and say, there's obviously gaps here that need to be addressed. And that is how we start to move the needle. That is how we keep, Amy's memory alive, by making sure there is no other Amy.
like having the Amy alerts system implemented on
Yeah,
cruise ships.
that would be amazing.
So for those that don't know, someone brilliant came up with the idea that, kind of like an Amber Alert, there is an Amy Alert, and it would go off essentially whenever a member of a passenger goes missing. And
Yep.
it's like
I
stop,
love
drop,
that.
and roll. Like
Yep.
all hands on deck. We as serious as a heart attack, you know. And I really think that my honest to God opinion, as someone who's worked in grassroots campaigns and pushing issues towards legislation, towards state law, I think that's how families are able to best cope, knowing that their children's legacy has been put towards a like a huge effort like this. Like if we could
Yeah.
make this happen for Amy and Amy's family and all those that it could potentially save the lives of in the future. What better outcome could we get next to finding Amy or finding out what happened to Amy? There is none, by
Yeah.
preventively saving lives. Um, and now you guys can understand why I was so pissed off last week when I had to cancel the show, because this is really good information, not only about Amy, but about such an important topic that is happening in your communities, whether you like to admit it or not. Um, and we don't talk about it enough. I don't know if the schools are talking about it enough. I don't know. I can certainly hope so, though. Um, was there anything that Netflix omitted? Whether it's something that I mentioned that you were unaware of, or things that you've read online that you find curious, and to take that a step further, could have helped provide coverage about the importance of fighting human trafficking.
No, I think it was covered pretty well. The only thing that you mentioned that I didn't know was the AOL chats. I don't know if that was mentioned
Oh,
in the Netflix series,
nope.
but yeah, that I wasn't aware of. Yeah, no, I thought Netflix did a very, very good job from what I know about the case. Obviously, um,
What
it's not as
Lisa, sorry,
no, go ahead.
what Lisa just said is so accurate. The things that I've come across in the last 2.5 weeks is horrifying. Actually, 3 weeks. Um, just these families. There's a boy named Max. Uh, his his mom and him and his sister went on vacation, and they left on my birthday on May 7th because their dad had died in the beginning of April, and this kid was 14, and they were vacationing in Aruba, and um they were groomed, the family as a whole, into believing that this guy was okay for Max to um, go ride jet skis with, and they came to find out that this guy had counts of child abuse, and like the bad child abuse on his record, and it was just horrific to learn about that. Totally unintentionally, after having found out about Amy's situation. Lots of this. Do you feel that way? Do you feel like now that I don't know, because this is your profession. Do you feel like ever since you heard about Amy's case, you've seen more, you've learned more, or have you always known that this area was a hotbed for this activity?
Any tourist area is a hotbed for this activity. Anyone where a person is transient, they're moving around, they're not from the area, they don't know
What's normal and what's not?
geographically where they are. And especially if there's a language barrier, those are definitely more challenging. I mean, you see missing persons cases on these resorts in Mexico, on these resorts in Central
So
and South
many.
America. I mean, because people, and it's not just because it happens there, but it's a tourist thing. It's you're there for vacation, you let your guard down, you're wanting to have fun, you're wanting to let loose, you're maybe having a couple drinks or talking to some locals, and so you let your guard down. And when you don't know what grooming looks like, when you don't know what trafficking looks like, when you don't know how these certain things can potentially play out, you're more at risk. So I don't know, it's just it's it happens everywhere. It happens. I mean, we
Yeah.
see a rise, and it happened during what is
COVID.
it? No, 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 no.
Oh.
During the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah. Oh my god, I cannot even
Yeah.
imagine how rampant it was when the Super Bowl was in Las Vegas. Like,
Yeah.
because I think about hotbeds for human trafficking, and one of the first places that comes to mind is a casino. Just from being someone who frequents casinos often, like I think about everything you just said, the transient aspect. There's money being exchanged, like,
Yep.
oh,
So, I mean, and generally when people vacation, like I said, they want to let loose, they want to let their
yeah,
guard down, they want to vacation and relax and have a couple drinks and sit in the sun and socialize with people and do all the things. And so when you let your guard down, that's unfortunately where people start to prey on that, whether it's to rob you, whether it's to, extort you, whether it's to assault you or worse. So we just need to be very aware, very vigilant in our own communities, online, when we're on vacation. And it's just a reality. Like I said, when you teach your children stop, drop, roll, we need to have that see something, say something be as common in people's minds as stop, drop, roll.
yeah, like it's always. I feel like we've been told, my generation at least has been told to like mind your business uh, if if a couple is fighting in public. Well, at some point it becomes everyone's business. You know what I'm saying? Like, and at some point you see something, you saw something, you need to say something. Like, it's, I don't know how else to say it other than stop being so damn polite, everyone. Stop thinking that someone else is going to call. Stop thinking that someone else is going to take care of it. They're not. Amy's example, or Allie's example, sorry, of the social experiment that happened this year with that kid
Yep.
that pretended to be getting abducted. That's horrifying. That's sickening. We are in 2025. This was in 1998. Like, we have grown light years when it comes to the topic of human trafficking. I, um, I can't I can't
Yeah,
get over all the stuff that was ignored and not done, and things that could have been done.
yeah, and so with, with a topic as heavy as this, like I like to say, I like to always leave it with, you've learned something, and I give you a key takeaway of how to, manage it, or how to go forward in the future. If Amy Alerts is a piece of legislation, it needs to be supported. If it's not a piece of legislation yet, it needs to be,
Right.
um, because that would be a amazing way to honor Amy's legacy by also leaving a lasting impact that that changes how things are done to prevent something like this from ever happening again. But B, it also, what I like to leave people with is that you've learned something. You've learned, that there are signs in these circumstances, that we need to continue to educate ourselves on what trafficking looks like. And it's constantly evolving. The methods, the techniques, the recruitment techniques, the strategies, the patterns, they're constantly evolving and changing. So even me, I can't sit there and think, okay, I know it all, and I don't need to keep learning and growing. No, I need to keep learning and growing every single day, because it's constantly changing. And so we just need to constantly keep our ear to what's going on with human trafficking, counter trafficking, connect with some counter trafficking organizations, start to learn a little bit about it, start to educate our children in a age appropriate way about,
100%.
inappropriate conversations, that, developing that trust. You can come to me if anything happens, you won't get in trouble. And there's materials to start having these conversations with your children, with your teenagers, and really to start moving the needle on having these conversations, and truly making an impact in the counter trafficking effort. But like I said, two key takeaways for your audience would be: A, if that legislation is actually already drafted, to support it, and B, if it's not drafted, to let's get it drafted and support
Yeah.
it. And then the other thing is to continue your education in and learning about human trafficking, because it is here.
I love that, Allie, and, I can't begin to tell you how beneficial I believe, this conversation was, and how much I appreciate you taking time. I know that, Allie and I are both kind of in the same wheelhouse. We aren't feeling 100% today, if you couldn't tell from me. Um, but we wanted to do this. We weren't gonna let it go another week. With that being said, can you briefly answer this one last question, Allie, and then tell everyone how they can find you and learn more about your organization, so on and so forth, and then I'll wrap us up.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So, what I would do is, with any nonprofit that you decide to donate to or support, definitely look at their financials. If they are a nonprofit that have been established for a while, they should have what's known as a 990, and that's a publicly available document. That allows you to dig into not only the donations they've received, but how they spent it. And it's really important to understand, because there's a lot of nonprofits that we believe, we've heard their names, um, throughout the years, and we think that they're just such great organizations, but then we start to dive into their financials, and we're like, well, you're not
So
exactly
many.
using the donations in the right way, or you're starting to enrich yourself, or you're starting to spend it on lavish trips and vacations, when that's not the intent of the organization nor the donation.
Right.
So I would start by looking at the nonprofits that you currently support. But as far as nonprofits that are focused on counter trafficking efforts, I can get into ours in a little bit as far as how you can find us. But Selah Freedom is a great organization.
Oh, yeah.
Shared Hope International, great organization, has a lot of good resources, a lot of good quick clips, short films, uh, PDF materials, age appropriate materials for teenagers, things like that to start talking about it. The Association for the Recovery of Children has a lot of good materials. And they offer trainings. So does Shared Hope. They offer trainings as well to become a ambassador in your community. That if Shared Hope gets a call saying, "Hey, I'm in Florida, I need a Shared Hope ambassador," they look up in their system and say, "Yep, we have this, and this person that has gone through our training, and now they're a Shared Hope ambassador and can advocate or work with you in your state." So those are
Valhalla, if you're listening, Valhalla, attention Valhalla, if you are listening, if you could put that link in the chat, that would be great. If you aren't, your disappointment. Keep going.
And then there's so many good organizations. I would hate to offend people by leaving some out, but one of them is Shepherd's Watch Foundation. They do a lot of work in Texas. Project Milk Carton, they do a lot of work. The milk cartons, how they used to show the faces of the kids and people used to see their faces. Well, Project Milk Carton actually took that and digitized that process. And so now they're taking like the knick-knack missing children and they're kind of putting it all on a website to show people, what children are missing from where and how long. So that's another great organization. And again, I'm going to get in trouble because I'm going to forget one of the organizations, but there's so many of them. If they have any questions or they need assistance or there's a certain state that they're looking for support, definitely reach out. I can point you in the right direction. Our organization is Guard Against Trafficking. You can go to guardagainsttrafficking.org. There's a little bit about me, my business partner, what we do, and how you can support us, because really donations are the lifeblood of our organization. Sorry, I have something in my eye now. So not only am I not feeling well, all of a sudden I have something in my eye. Great.
Coming off the reels. That's why it's totally cool.
Yeah.
We can wrap it up.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. But yeah, it's donations are the lifeblood of our organization. So whether that's $10 a month, like a cup of coffee a month, or you can donate more, that would be fantastic, because really that's what fuels us to be able to provide the research opportunities that develops the education that we create, and allows us to bring those findings to like that congressional hearing that happened 2 weeks ago and the one that happened in November. And then my business partner testified in front of the Senate in July of last year. So all of it, it falls in line with the work that we do, and it supports each facet or aspect of our work supports the other. And so we just really appreciate the support. Follow us on social media. Donate if you can, if you feel inclined, and reach out if you have any questions.
I love that. Thank you so much, Allie. I appreciate you taking the time, and please don't be a stranger.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Lacey, for looking into this and having me on. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you more, girl. Talk soon. Feel better.
All right. Thanks.
Okay, everyone. Allie, do you want me to take you off?
Sure. No, I can leave.
Okay, sorry. I was just
that's okay.
gonna close out.
Yep.
So thank you, everyone, for being here and meeting my pal, Allie. Like I said, she's a really big deal. She's very knowledgeable in what she does. So much so that our elected leaders rely on her information and knowledge to help educate themselves further about what they can do from a federal level to assist in the fight against human trafficking. Thank you for all the compliments. I really appreciate it. I'm glad that this was helpful and you found this to be of assistance. And my only further request would be, if you haven't done so already, please, please, please make sure to share this, like it, subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Criminally, what's my name? That's how off I'm feeling, guys. Criminally confident on YouTube, and then Lacey J Meeks on X. That means so much. Not just so I can have likes. That's not what this is about. It boosts the algorithm, so it gets more eyes on it than from people that have not seen my channel before. And so they can not only learn about Amy's case, but also about the importance of preventing human trafficking and what to look out for and all the things that we discussed today. So thanks for joining. I do this every Thursday from 7 to 9. I am letting you guys know I have a I don't know what I'm legally allowed to say. That's fun. Next Thursday, I am not going to be live. And it could be one of it. Next Thursday could be one of the most impactful, life-changing, difficult, glorious days of my life. It seems that I might be closing a chapter on a very, very difficult part of my life. And I can come back in 2 weeks and not be as cryptic about it. But if you are a person of faith, I would kindly ask for your prayers, to keep my family in your prayers. And as long as I don't have to sign an NDA, then I will happily share what happened and give you guys an update next time I'm live. But I am planning on doing a recording. So I would have that set to play at 7 p.m. next Thursday. I just don't know who yet. So if there's someone that you would like to see get an interview, or you are watching and you think that you would be a beneficial guest, please feel free to reach out to me. I am on X, and that's pretty much where I live exclusively. So thank you. And another thank you to the Bradley family. As always, you guys are baller. You're never far from my thoughts. So just like you guys, I so greatly appreciate your support. I apologize that I wasn't here last week, but no matter what, I knew I had to come tonight. So I will see you in the chats. I will see you live in 2 weeks, but we'll have a video out next Thursday at 7. All right, guys, behave. The world is crazy, so just behave. Bye.